You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's January the 6th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. Good morning, Rev Cindy, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Al. How was your holiday?
Good. I got to visit family, got to do some things around the house that needed to be done, and a few other things.
Always good, yeah.
And yourself?
My holiday was fantastic. I turned off work a couple of days before Christmas and just turned it back on this morning.
Exactly. I did the same thing. Our last broadcast was the last time I had my computer turned on.
Yeah. It was a good break visiting with family and doing just fun things.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And get caught up on a few things that weren't getting done, and everything's good now, and we're caught up. So
wicked.
All righty. Oh, I see I got messages. I'll check them afterwards. We got news to cover, and we've got, there's been so much news over the last 2 weeks. I'm posting it on the Facebook page so everybody can still follow along with the news. But we can't squeeze it all into a broadcast. But we got some stuff that's going to cover things internationally as well as locally, and especially after today's rumors and stories that's in our headlines today about a possible change in our government and everything along that line. Maybe prime minister resigning. Who knows what's going on? We'll find out in the days to come. But what's the possibility? What's going to happen down the road when it comes to cannabis fall? So let's just start the new year off with the story from there. There you go.
Yeah. Coming to us from StratCan, what could an early election mean for the cannabis industry and pending regulatory changes?
Yeah, with an early federal election looking increasingly likely, really likely now, there are several issues those in the cannabis industry should be keeping an eye on in the coming months. Given the current and ongoing polling and national mood, this article is written with the assumption that the next government will be a conservative one led by P.A.C.E.
Yeah. If an election is called, it can mean changes to several ongoing issues the industry is focused on. Here are a few worth watching. Health Canada delivered a large package of proposals and changed the federal cannabis rules and regulations in 2024, lowering fees and regulatory requirements and increasing the amount of cannabis that micros can grow and process. Since they were first proposed, the changes have been expected to come into force in early to mid 2025.
Now, if an election is called at any point, these regulatory proposals will not immediately stop as they would if they were legislation. But this would mean that the work would be primarily paused until the end of the election. The new government could then choose to continue that work and pause it indefinitely or even scrap it entirely. If the new government is the Liberal Party of Canada under the leadership of Trudeau or someone else, then such work will likely continue and the final changes will be solidified and posted on Gazette 2.
However, if the new government is, as expected, the Conservative Party of Canada under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, then it is possible the work will be shelved, possibly indefinitely or even scrapped entirely. The Conservatives would likely not lose much political capital in doing so and might even gain some capital among specific sectors of their base. That said, it's also possible that given the general red tape reduction and the streamlining nature of the proposed changes, a new Conservative government could still implement all or some of these proposed changes. However, it wouldn't necessarily need to be given the same level of priority in terms of implementation as the Liberals would have likely have given.
Now, as far as the excise tax, they say the federal government also recently said it's considering possibly moving from 13 separate cannabis excise stamps to one national one, something the industry has been asking for. The timeline for this consideration was next spring, similar to the issues relating to the proposed regulatory package. A new government would not necessarily need to keep such a promise. An election could, at best, slow down the process of investigating the issue. Now, as far as Conservatives and cannabis, the above issues relate to ongoing work that the current government has done on the cannabis file. But what could a conservative federal government mean for the cannabis industry and the associated act and regulations in general?
This is a very broad question that deserves its own in-depth analysis, and there are many layers to consider. But here are a few high-level considerations. The Conservatives have several known talking points related to the cannabis file that could signal the possible direction of a new Conservative-led federal government might take.
Now, here's one: medical cannabis. The Conservatives in the past tried to make significant changes to Canada's medical cannabis access programs, repeatedly forced to manage the medical cannabis file by the courts in 2013. The Conservatives first tried to get rid of the ability for medical cannabis users entirely, with approval from a Health Canada provider, to grow their own cannabis or to designate someone to do so on their behalf. The patients at that time, it's not on here, but the patients at that time would know this at the time when they wanted us to put our cannabis in kitty litter and dispose of it. Now, their messaging since that time has not changed much, with a big focus from many Conservative MPs over the years to highlight how this personal and designated producer system at times abused for the purpose of diversion into the illicit market. So it's not much of a stretch to assume they will continue to focus if they again hold the reins of power in Ottawa.
Homegrow. Not only do Conservative Party members have a track record of trying to get rid of medical homegrow, but many in the party have long expressed concerns with people having the right to grow their own cannabis. This was one of the many aspects of cannabis legalization that the Conservative Party outright opposed on principle, with one famous Conservative MP suggesting that young kids would be getting high with their parents' homegrow, utilizing toaster ovens. Yes. Another Conservative MP compared homegrown cannabis to being able to make fentanyl at home. Like, seriously. It was a Conservative Senator, Vern White, who proposed an amendment to Bill C-45, the cannabis legalization bill, that would have removed the allowance to grow up to 4 plants at home. The amendment was defeated 40-33. Then another Conservative Senator, Claude Carnagan proposed an amendment that would have allowed indoor cultivation. That was also defeated in a 40-31 vote.
So you can see by those numbers and just by those 4 paragraphs that we've just gone through, the Conservatives are not for medical patients growing at home, and they're not for recreational grows as well.
Yeah.
Now, after legislation or legalization, the Conservative Shadow Minister of Health at the time, Marilyn Gladu, told the Globe and Mail in 2019 that the party would seek to ban home grows and further restrict personal and designated home grow licenses while supporting larger publicly traded licensed producers. It's all right there, folks. So it's not a stretch to suggest that this could also be within their sights.
Yeah.
I've been saying this for months.
Yep.
I'm glad to see it in writing.
A less diverse industry. The coming into force of the Federal Cannabis Act and cannabis regulation represented a significant shift from the previous medical-only status quo. Not only did this mean more broad access to a regulated cannabis supply chain for adults in Canada, it also meant new production regulations that were much less one-size-fits-all than the previous conservative government's medical rules had established. While legalization itself was built around the basic foundation of federally licensed producers, first created by Health Canada under Harper's watch, the MMPR, broader cannabis legalization simplified certain aspects of those regulations and the application process and created new license categories to allow for smaller and less capital-rich businesses to participate. No longer was there just one large LP license that could cost tens of millions and take years to apply for. Some producers today, especially micros and nurseries, can make it through the licensing process in less than a year and at times well under $1 million. Some have even done it for under 100,000.
Wow, that's the process itself, though, isn't easy. It requires a lot of time and resources to manage the number of licenses and license categories, but not only during the application process, but also once they are licensed. Staff must answer phone calls, respond to emails, and undertake inspections. Licensing hundreds of smaller micros is not cost effective, and a new government seeking to cut red tape and bureaucracy could view such an approach as insufficient. If you're working at or invested in a big licensed producer, this could be a win for you. But if you're a smaller business operating in or looking to operate in the cannabis space, this might mean longer wait times for service. If you think it's bad now, imagine if there were, for example, 25% fewer employees to respond to your requests.
Yeah. Now, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. There are arguments to be made for red tape reduction and streamlining of some of the more onerous aspects of the federal regulations. But given the Conservatives' overall resistance to the cannabis file in general, remember all but one Conservative voted against legalization itself, it's unlikely to see this as a priority. When it comes to the excise tax, Conservatives hate taxes, right? Well, sort of. Yes, the Conservatives, especially Pierre, have spent much time railing about the excise taxes in Canada, especially the carbon tax, verb the noun, as slogans go.
But does this translate to excise tax reform for the cannabis industry? It's possible, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Any changes to the federal excise rate for cannabis means less money for the provinces, who bring home almost all of that money. That's not something many federal leaders would see much benefit in doing, especially on a file that most voters don't seem to care much about, if at all. What will a Conservative government of Canada mean for the cannabis industry? At best, I would prepare for less federal support, not more, and a delay in any ongoing regulatory changes, such as harmonizing excise stamps or the massive regulatory package proposal shared in 2024.
At worst, the industry should prepare for a shrinking federal regulatory agency that will seek to streamline operations, which would most likely mean a redefined focus on a few touch points, a handful of big companies, not tons of little ones. This could be good news for the handful of big pubcos on the producer side, but for the little guys, it might be about to get a lot harder. That said, none of this is foregone certainty. While much of the above is negative, there's also the possibility that the right advice, Poilievre's government could approach this differently, unshackling cannabis from the overregulation of the nanny state. Some past statements in regard to edibles potency limits, for example, show some potential openness to this approach. And there's been years and differences in from when we legalized and when a lot of this stuff is coming from to now. And there's been a lot more studies that these people can read, and I'm kind of hoping that they're open to reading them and that they're open to hearing them, not just reading them. And maybe some people have been touched by ailments that cannabis has helped. I can only hope that something has opened the eyes of the naysayers.
Well, let's hope so. Because really, I know there's a lot of people want Trudeau to be out,
Mhm.
but I'd hate to see us, take a step backwards in the cannabis end of things.
Yeah.
And the track record of the conservative governments of the past isn't very good when it comes to the cannabis file.
Yeah.
And it's let's hope that if he does resign, if it comes down to maybe it's a new leader, that who knows what's going to happen.
Who
But
knows?
that article has got some points that need to be raised or questioned, when election time comes, and people are asking those leaders or the reps in the area, where does your party stand on the cannabis file? Right? Are they, as we know, before our previous government, mandatory minimums, 6 months in jail if you grew 6 plants or less.
Yeah, well,
So hopefully, like you said,
now it's 14 years if you grow 5 or more. So
yeah. I know. So hopefully things change for the better. Like they say, there could be, conservatives that are against regulations. So hopefully, we'll find out though.
yeah.
We will find out. All right. On to our next story. It's up.
Coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference, the top international cannabis stories from 2024.
Here we go. This year was one of the biggest years in the history of the cannabis movement for both policy and industry. And below are the best international stories from 2024. And this is in no particular order. Okay, in Germany, the adult use legalization enacted. The top international cannabis story from 2024 is the enactment of adult use cannabis legalization in Germany. Starting on April the 1st, 2024, adults in Germany can cultivate a personal amount of cannabis plants in their private residences and possess a personal amount of cannabis. Additionally, starting on July the 1st, 2024, people can apply to launch a member-based cultivation association in Germany. That's what we need here too. We need that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Historic cannabis votes in Slovenia. In conjunction with the European elections on June 9th of 2024, Slovenia voted on 2 consultative cannabis referendums. 66.71% of Slovenian voters approved a measure for the cultivation and processing of cannabis for medical purposes, and 51.57% voted for the cultivation and possession of cannabis for limited personal use. South Africa legalizes recreational cannabis. Back in 2018, South Africa Constitutional Court issued a landmark ruling that deemed cannabis prohibition as it pertained to adult individuals to be unconstitutional. This year, last year, 2024, after a long delay, South Africa's president signed a measure to codify the court's 2018 decision. Another major news story out of South Africa in 2024 was the certification of the Sheba Cannabis and Hemp Academy's higher certificate in cannabis production and management. The cannabis education program is the first on the African continent to be accredited by the Council of Higher Education.
Australia medical cannabis sales quadrupled. Medical cannabis sales in Australia, like I said, they quadrupled during the last 2 years, while Australians expected to spend an estimated $1 billion, that's right, people, billion, on medical cannabis in 2024. Medical cannabis was first legalized in Australia in 2016. Another major news story from Australia this year, albeit for less favorable reasons, was the failed vote on adult use cannabis legalization. Uruguay adds a high THC strain to legal pharmacy sales. Now, legal sales in pharmacies began in Uruguay in the summer of 2017, and consumers could initially choose from 2 different strains. The 2 strains are named Alpha and Beta, each with THC levels equal to or less than 9%, and CBD levels equal to or less than 3%. Then in 2022, Uruguay permitted a third option, Gamma, which has a THC level of equal or less than 15%. and CBD levels are equal or less than 1%. Regulators in Uruguay approved a fourth option in 2024 that contains a high level of THC than the other three options.
Wow. Well,
What
that's
is it?
Yeah. What are we going to call this one? Theta?
I don't know. So yeah, there you go.
Very cool. Spain Ministry of Health publishes medical cannabis royal decree. The effort to bring Spain's medical cannabis policies into the modern age passed a major milestone in 2024, with the nation's Minister of Health publishing a draft royal decree focused on medical cannabis. Spain is home to one of the largest cannabis communities in Europe and is in desperate need of updated cannabis laws. Chesia, Minister of Justice, proposes legalization. The Ministry of Justice in the Czech Republic issued a proposal in 2024 to allow all adults to be able to cultivate up to 3 plants in their private residences, in addition to proposing up to 25 grams when away from their residences, or possessing up to 25 grams when away from their residences, and up to 50 grams in their home. Another major story from the Czech Republic was a landmark court decision that found a cannabis educator, Robert Veverka, was previously wrongly prosecuted for publishing cannabis education content.
That's good for him. I do question the 3 plants and only allowing to store 50 grams in your home, though.
Like, those would be really tiny plants.
They'd have to be. Like, I had one plant this year that yielded over 900 grams. Wow. And I had more than one plant, I got to say. So how do you deal with 50 grams? I don't know. That was the problem we had here when Canada legalized. It wasn't the storage. It was the fact that one time during the movement to as like in the legislation at one point, they had a maximum height of 100 centimeters. And everybody said, well, how do you control that? And that is a question. Like, how do you control only 50 grams? So, yeah. Mexico authorizes low THC hemp cultivation. Mexico's Federal Commission for Protection Against Sanitary Risks authorized the cultivation of low THC hemp products, which is less than 1% THC, earlier this year. The announcement came in the form of a letter from the regulatory entity to Semillas Edemecas Mexicana Sadavi. Now, Japan's cannabis market expanded 6-fold. A new cannabis law took effect in Japan in 2024, and market research has announced this year that Japan's legal cannabis industry has increased 6-fold in recent years. Japan's new law took effect in 2024, allows for the importation of certain medical cannabis products, which should further increase the size of Japan's legal cannabis industry going forward.
Legalization is crushing the unregulated market in Canada. Health Canada released the results of its 2024 cannabis survey. And one of the main findings of this year's survey is that only 3% of consumers reported accessing cannabis through illegal sources, which is a decrease from a reported 16% back in 2019. I'm not sure how true that is, but I mean, like, I've in the last couple of weeks, I have been watching people that have said no to the legal cannabis market since it started. They now work in the legal cannabis market. They're showing off their purchases from the legal cannabis market. So I don't know how right those numbers are, but I see the swing.
I have to agree. I do see the swing, but we did report on this survey before the holidays.
Yeah.
And there was a breakdown of it. And the numbers of consumers that did the survey was low.
Yes.
There was more non-consumers or very light consumers who did the survey versus people like you and me and the people that we know, right? So once we went through that article and read it, and that made it easier to understand why it only showed 3% of consumers are going to the illicit market, because there wasn't it wasn't an everyday consumer that was doing the survey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And finally, France's medical cannabis trial receives another extension. Health authorities in France announced this month, I think we're talking December, that the nation's medical cannabis trial experiment will be extended until July 31st, 2025. The announcement is welcomed news to the reported 1,800 suffering patients estimated to be currently participating in the trial.
So there you go. All kinds of news around the world on cannabis.
Exciting.
Yes, it sure is. And it's good to see, changes and laws being improved, but there's still people out there that are still being, subject to life sentences and still to death. So changes have to be made. So
Yep.
we're not done yet. So
Not done yet.
no, not done yet. Just because it's legal in Canada doesn't mean that we just stop for everybody else. We still got to keep the fight going, right?
That's right.
All right. Next story is up.
Coming to us from Health Day, psychedelics may boost mental health of people with cancer in recovery.
Good news.
Yeah.
Mind-opening psychedelic drugs can provide a needed boost to people dealing with cancer or struggling with alcoholism, according to a pair of new studies from New York University. One study found that psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, significantly reduced anxiety, depression, anger, and other mental health problems in people with cancer when combined with therapy.
The second found that psilocybin can reduce depression, impulsiveness, and other unhelpful feelings in people being treated for alcohol use disorder. Our findings suggest the mental health benefits of psilocybin therapy for cancer patients may reach far beyond what we have previously understood. And this is coming from Dr. Petros Petrids, who is the lead author of the first study of a clinical assistant professor of psychiatry, New York University Grossman School of Medicine. And he said this in a news release from the school.
Now, for the first study, researchers analyzed data from 2 previous clinical trials that used psilocybin-assisted therapy to address anxiety and depression in nearly 80 men and women with cancer. The data showed that psilocybin boosted therapy's ability to help cancer patients deal with their feelings, compared to the therapy given with a placebo dose of vitamin B3. The positive benefits lasted at least 6 months.
Wow.
Wow.
Further, results show that psilocybin did not appear to cause any harmful side effects like paranoia or psychosis or phobia. For the second study, researchers randomly assigned 84 people with alcohol use disorder to therapy sessions involving either psilocybin or a placebo.
The psilocybin group showed significant improvements in impulsivity, depression, and vulnerability compared to the placebo group, researchers report. They say that since impulsiveness has long been linked to both excessive drinking and relapse after treatment, the personality changes brought about by psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy may help those recovering from alcohol dependence remain resilient to internal and external stressors known to trigger relapse. This is from lead researcher Brock Pagney, a postdoctoral fellow of psychiatry at the NYU.
Yeah, the patients also grew more open and more accepting of their thoughts and emotions. Men were more likely to experience a boost of positive emotions, while women were more likely to have an increase in openness, researchers said.
However, researchers noted that these studies occurred in controlled therapeutic environments and that psilocybin is best used under doctors' supervision. So there you go.
There we go.
Good. It's always good news when you can, read about a report or about a study on that. That's people dealing with depression, people dealing with alcoholism, and cancer, which is throwing a lot of that stuff. I'm sure when patients get cancer, depression, people can have negative thoughts. I had cancer, and I was able to have it removed, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So.
Yep.
Alrighty, on to our last story before we go to break, and it's up.
Coming to us from StratCan, Manitoba's homegrown cannabis bill could come into force in April.
All right. Manitoba government is seeking feedback on its proposed repeal of the prohibition on adults growing up to 4 cannabis plants at home. The law will require plants to be grown indoors only. Huh? The Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Authority of Manitoba has now shared an opportunity for public feedback on the regulatory changes in a proposed coming into a force effect of April the 1st, 2024 or 2025. I'm still questioning is home indoors only.
Interesting. Bill 34, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, which repealed Manitoba's ban on growing up to 4 cannabis plants at home, passed on June 3rd, 2024. The ban on growing cannabis at home has been put in place by the former Progressive Conservative government in Manitoba in 2018. The Manitoba NDP committed to repealing the bill and did so after forming government following an election in October of 2023. The proposed regulations would allow a person who is 19 years of age or older to cultivate up to 4 cannabis plants in their ordinary residence. However, a person will not be allowed to cultivate cannabis plants in different residences at the same time, and only 4 plants can be in a home, regardless of how many adults reside there.
All cannabis plants will be required to come from seeds or plant material that is not illicit cannabis. And all plants must be cultivated indoors, in a room or container that is securely locked or in a location that is not otherwise accessible to young persons. So you can't get a clone from your buddy?
Not unless they grew it from a legal seed.
I guess anybody who's got some old genetics, clones, yeah. The proposed regulations also state that a person who is cultivating cannabis in their residence may possess cannabis that they have cultivated that is not packaged, labeled, or stamped while their cannabis is in their residence. StratCan has requested clarification from representatives with the Manitoba government on whether this means Manitobans cannot take their homegrown cannabis outside of their home. What? This article will be updated if and when that information becomes available.
This move will make Quebec the only province that still does not allow residents to grow cannabis at home. In 2023, the Supreme Court upheld the province's right to ban growing at home. In September of 2024, the provincial government completed targeted stakeholder consultations. The LGCA invited First Nations organizations, industry and business organizations, law enforcement, Manitoba Health and Addictions, the Residential Tenancies Branch, and other stakeholders to submit feedback on the proposal and the potential safety and security requirements for doing so.
The LGCA and Manitoba Justice will also jointly communicate with municipalities to provide a summary of the laws and regulations and answer questions where complaints can be directed. Jesse Lavoie, who helped to spearhead a lawsuit targeting Manitoba's homegrown ban with his group Tobagrown, says he is happy to see the new law progressing, but has concerns with some of the proposed regulations. Here.
Our initial excitement about the passing of this bill has been tempered upon reviewing the preliminary draft, which proposes restrictions requiring plants to remain indoors and preventing harvested cannabis from being removed from the home. This is a critical movement for Manitobans to engage and provide constructive feedback to the government of Manitoba. We are committed to doing so. Kirk Tusaw, who is a lawyer who has worked with Tobagrown on the campaign to change the provincial law, shared a similar statement with StratCan.
Yeah, Kurt says, we are pleased that Manitobans will finally be able to grow their 4 plants like almost all other Canadians have been permitted to do so since 2018. That said, it is disappointing that Manitoba will continue to prohibit outdoor cannabis cultivation on the misguided belief that doing so will protect young people. Cannabis has been grown outdoors throughout Canada, legally, for decades when you consider medical cannabis cultivation. And there are virtually 0 incidents in which young people have accessed it. This is just a continued fear mongering that has no place in modern Canadian society. Here, Kurt. Yes.
Go, Kurt.
Yeah. It's like I was happy to see when I read that headline that, hey, they're going to be able to grow in Manitoba finally. But now that after reading that article that you're not allowed to grow outside, and you might not be able. So you take your cannabis out of your own home, like
exactly. Like I mean, like I can, it's fear mongering, but I can understand it's a step. Like okay, grow indoors. We don't want the kids to get it. It's a step. That one will be easy to beat. Especially with people like Kirk on their side. But now that you've grown it and you're heading to your friend's place or your friend's cabin for the weekend, you can't take it with you.
You wouldn't be able to take it with you. No, not the way it is.
You have to go buy packaged. Yeah, that makes no sense.
This is their proposal. So now at least they've asked for some feedback. And this is the opportunity for people, as far as I know, it would only be allowed, Manitobians would be the only ones allowed to submit feedback, I would assume. Yeah. But this is the opportunity to get your voices heard, get in there, because those are things that need to be changed, obviously. And as it says, Quebec you still can't grow in Quebec, and you're just getting here. And yet again, it was a conservative government that took away the rights for Manitoba people to grow their own cannabis. We know the Supreme Court allowed Quebec to ban growing cannabis. So what prevents another provincial government from stopping people from growing cannabis? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All right. Time for us to take a break because I don't want to get into that too much. We'll be right back. You're watching.
Time to go medicate that last story away, Al.
Yeah, really. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News. We'll be back. And let's see. They changed things around here on StreamYard. I'm looking at this going, whoa, what's different? Here we go. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Oh, maybe 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats. And look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at PACERadio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Are you looking for non-stop, continuous cannabis and psychedelic programming? If you are, then turn your browsers to 420radio.ca or PACEradio.net, where you will find the 420 Pace re-rolled Saturday. Everything gets started at 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at PACEradio.net.
All right, we're back. Cindy's finishing her medication session. All righty, let's get into the news. Here we go. First one's up.
Coming to us from the Marijuana Herald, Colorado, applications for psilocybin treatment centers are now open.
Yes, they have approved by voters in 2022. Proposition 122, which is the Natural Medicine Health Act, allows regulated use of psilocybin for conditions such as depression, PTSD in those 21 years of age or older. And as of today, January the 1st, which is a few days ago, licenses for treatment centers are now open for those interested in applying. Although it will take months for services to commence, this marks a significant milestone in the 2022 law being fully enacted.
Yeah, that's exciting. The move has sparked heated debates, particularly in conservative areas like Colorado Springs, notes the Associated Press. Local leaders have imposed restrictions on psilocybin healing centers, limiting their proximity to schools and other locations. Despite objections from the veterans advocating for access, the city council passed a measure extending these restrictions, citing safety concerns. Veterans like Lane Ballon have been vocal proponents of psilocybin therapy, emphasizing its potential to address the lingering trauma of military service. This is an opportunity to support veterans, says Ballon, who credits psilocybin with helping him manage anxiety and reconnect with life.
While psilocybin remains federally illegal, Colorado's program is far more controlled than the state's recreational cannabis market. The therapy will involve strict oversight, including risk assessments, monitored sessions, and regulated psilocybin production. Advocates argue the urgency of addressing mental health crisis. This is a tool we can add to our toolbox, says Tyler West of Healing Advocacy Fund.
Mm-hmm. With promising results from early studies, Colorado's program could pave the way for broader acceptance of psychedelic therapies and similar programs being enacted in other states. Proposition 122 also allows for the possession of psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline, excluding peyote, but doesn't establish regulated distribution of these substances.
Yeah, we had that situation where we were allowed legal cannabis at one time, but Terry didn't have any spot to access it, and that sounds sort of familiar. All right, let's get the next one up. We're going to be counting by the numbers here because of the next story.
Yeah. Yes,
Ready?
Coming to us from Cannabis and Tech Today. By the numbers, top 5 health conditions women are treating with cannabis.
Right, and you let me know whether these are top 5 or whether you have some that you think should be added to it. And it says I began watching in the cannabis space over 20 plus years ago when we were all activists. And the main point of cannabis policy reform was ending criminal prosecution in the years since. And as the industry has grown, cannabis has become a symbol of issues greater than itself. The continued illegality of cannabis in some states and at the federal level represents radically motivated policing. The need for well-crafted and effective social equity programs speaks to negative impacts of the war on drugs.
Yeah. The focus on testing and product safety shines a light on balancing regulation and personal freedom. The access to medical cannabis shifts focus to the dangers of opiates and other pharmaceutical drugs being prescribed without careful consideration. A majority of Americans, including those from both sides of the aisle, now favor cannabis legalization. The most impactful discussions of cannabis during this election will not exist in a vacuum, but should be tied to issues that impact most Americans.
Now, according to the 2023 New Frontier Data Consumer Survey, the top 5 health conditions women are treating with cannabis are painful periods, heavy bleeding, menopause, irregular periods, and PMS. Would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, we're coming directly from women. I think those are beautiful, painful periods. Menopause, PMS can all be helped by cannabis. I would throw in osteoarthritis on top of that because women are very prone to osteoarthritis, and fibromyalgia. I fight both of those.
Now, it says here the top 5 health-related symptoms women are treating with cannabis are
back pain, mood changes, sleep problems, headaches, and bloating. Absolutely. And they can, all of those can fall into, most of what we just saw. All of that can fall into painful periods, into menopause, PMS. It's the symptoms of what we go through. And I would have to absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, you can see how I understand where you're coming from, where they could be all connected for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 55% of women surveyed use cannabis products with THC and 18% use products with CBD. The top 3 product forms that women use to treat their symptoms are we smoke cannabis. Absolutely. Edibles are very much up there. And vaporization. I think we are missing topicals. If you're a woman out there and you suffer from back pain, if you suffer from sleep problems and headaches and perimenopause and menopause, topicals and soaking in cannabis are definitely they should definitely, I would put them above vaporization on that list.
Yeah, so soaking, you mean like bath bombs?
Bath bombs, absolutely.
Yeah. Now they say that 96% of women who use cannabis to treat a woman's health problem say it is effective at managing their symptoms, with 40% saying it's very effective. So there you go.
Yeah. And as with any pain, we are looking at the women only problems there, but men have arthritis, men have back pain, men have muscle cramps. Eating cannabis just, it helps to relax the muscles. It helps to ease the pain. It helps to, if you get, if you use a product, especially with enough CBD in there, that CBD is going to help with swelling and et cetera, et cetera. We all know.
Yeah. All righty. Here we go. On to the next story.
Coming to us from MSN. Ottawa magic mushroom shops keep a low profile as police crack down in other cities.
Ottawa magic mushroom shops openly selling the illegal drugs say they're hoping police have more pressing matters than cracking down on their stores, as retailers and other municipalities are raided and shut down. The production, sale, and possession of magic mushrooms is against the law in Canada, but the shops have been sprouting up across the country regardless. Sort of like mushrooms in the field, just crop up. Doop, doop, doop.
Imagine. Walking into the Golden Teacher in Ottawa's Lower Town, shoppers are met with soft music, wood furnishings, coffee table, books, and of course, fungi imagery everywhere. It brands itself as a mushroom-based wellness store that aims to alter people's perception of the medicine and the experience of buying it.
Yeah, according to Danielle, who manages the store, it says that with all of our products, you're never going to leave here with a Ziploc. CBC has agreed to use Daniel's first name only due to his concern that his connection to the store could affect his other sources of income.
Yeah. The Golden Teacher was the first mushroom retailer to open in Ottawa, but it shut down in the later half of 2023 after police issued a letter warning its landlord to cease illegal activities. The shop was preparing to reopen this month down the street with the same name, same logo. Those behind the store say they never expect it to be the one and only magic mushroom dispensary to open in Ottawa.
There's someone who needs to be the first to do something, and that's a step, and it's easier for someone to follow, Daniel says. Now, at a Microzumi's location in Bell's Corners, employees say that while they seek to destigmatize psilocybin use and meet a need, they're also been keeping a low profile since the opening in March.
We've had a lot of success just kind of keeping quiet in a little suburban communities and not causing a ruckus or being near the ruckus of heavy populated areas. This is Shane Webster, who's a clerk there. And I think that's worked out to our benefit, at least a little bit, because in the end, we're just trying to be a net positive to the community.
Now, Webster didn't want to disclose whether police had visited the store, but said Microzumi's aims to keep complaints in an absolute minimum. We're not trying to be in your face or take over the community or draw more attention than the needs that needs to be right. We're just like any other shop, essentially.
Fun Guys, which is a chain with the majority of its 30 locations in Ontario, including 3 in Ottawa, announced in November it will close them all, citing crackdowns in other jurisdictions. We give up. Thank you, and you guys accomplished your task, Fun Guys spokesperson Chris Stewart told CBC, directly addressing the police officers involved in raids across the country.
Still, these shops know the risks involved in running an illegal dispensary. In a statement to CBC, the Ottawa Police Services said it handles complaints on an individual basis to determine appropriate courses of action. This could include sending letters to landlords to inform them they are knowingly allowing illegal businesses to operate from their properties, and they may come with legal consequences.
OPS has conducted operations to close 3 shops, and we are also working to address other priorities that include the opiate crisis and recent large arrests and amounts seized. This is by Jamie Dunlap of the Forces Serious and Organized Crimes Directorate. Landlords and shop owners should realize they are operating illegally, and new enforcement measures will come at our direction and timing.
Eugene Oscapella, he's an Ottawa-based lawyer who specializes in drug policy, world renowned, agreed police ultimately have the final say on enforcement. He explained that police have the discretion, the same way they may get somebody for jaywalking. They may let the next person go.
Oscapella likens the current landscape to the cannabis market prior to legalization in 2018, when dispensaries popped up everywhere and were met with a range of responses by police. Police have a lot of issues on their plate, Oscapella said. I think in the past 15, 20 years, we've seen a bit of shift away from just going after people because they're using drugs to saying, look, what harm is this? Should we be devoting our resources to something more problematic like drug overdoses?
Oscapella said issuing letters to landlords is a bit softer than direct law enforcement. He says it's the burden on the landlord to be the initial enforcer, and it avoids dragging people directly into the criminal process, he told CBC in an email. It also saves police resources.
Yeah.
There he is there.
Yeah, John Gilchrist, who is the communications manager for TheraPsil, a national organization advocating for expanded access to psilocybin for therapeutic uses, says, while the stores are illegal, they also reflect clear public demand. He says for people suffering from debilitating conditions like severe depression, the medicine's promised benefits often feels like one of the few avenues still available.
But Gilchrist says they also come with issues. There's a lack of medical oversight for people who may be using it for medical purposes, he says, not to mention psilocybin is a very, very powerful substance.
On the other hand, he says magic mushrooms wouldn't be the first substance sold in a store to come with risks, adding the current situation is also difficult for police. Cops do not want to deal with psilocybin mushroom stores. They have far bigger fish to fry, he said.
Oh yeah, well, as it says that it wouldn't be the first substance sold in a store that comes with risks. All you gotta do is just walk into a grocery store. There's all kinds of things available in the grocery store.
Yeah, pick up anything with anything in a can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Last story of the day.
Okay.
Coming up. And
yes.
I gotta get it ready. Here we go.
Coming to us from MJ Biz Daily, Canadian cannabis operator Entourage inks deal to go private.
That's right. Canadian cannabis company Entourage Health Corp plans to go private in a deal with its primary investor and lender, a major pension fund. According to a purchasing agreement with a numbered company here in Ontario, the affiliate of Luna Pension Fund of Central and Eastern Canada will acquire all of Entourage's issued and outstanding common shares for 0.005 Canadian dollars per share. Like, that's wow.
Yeah.
After 0.005 of a dollar. How low is that?
Pretty low.
It's pretty low.
After thorough evaluation, the special committee is confident that the proposed transaction offers the most favorable outcome for the company and its shareholders. In light of the current challenges and the upcoming expiration of the current forbearance agreement, Jason Alexander, director and chair of the Special Committee of Independent Directors for Entourage, said in a statement, the transaction ensures shareholders receive immediate, tangible value while positioning the company for future growth and flexibility.
A maximum of $250,000 will be paid to certain convertible debt holders under the same terms, according to the news release. Now, in connection with the transaction, Entourage reached a debt settlement agreement with holders of $1,013,050 in unsecured debt issued through a subsidiary.
The cash offer is guaranteed by 2437653 Ontario Incorporated, another affiliated of P.A.C.E, an employer-based pension fund with a portfolio eclipsing $12 billion in assets. Entourage directors, executives, and other shareholders controlling 27% of issued and outstanding common stock agreed to approve the deal, according to the company.
The transaction still must be approved by 2/3 of shareholders and a majority of non-producer affiliated shareholders at a meeting next month. If approved, the transaction is expected to close shortly after, subject to court approval and customary closing conditions.
Upon finalizing the transaction, Entourage common shares traded under ENTG.V are expected to delist from the TSX Venture Exchange. The company also expected to submit an application to the Ontario Securities Commission to cease as a publicly traded company.
And in October, Entourage announced an LPFCEC affiliate increased its credit line by an additional $2.5 million as it negotiated prior credit breaches with the pension fund affiliates, and at the time, LPF owned over 10% of Entourage common shares.
Interesting.
There you go. So gone from being a public company, going to be private. And we got a message from Laura English. She says, bye-bye, Trudeau.
As soon as I saw that, I had to go do some research. That's why my head was down a little bit. Starting 13 minutes ago, 14 minutes ago, apparently, Trudeau was supposedly supposed to start 14 minutes ago with his announcement of resignation.
Resignation? No. Okay. We'll have to.
He called a press conference for 10:45. So that was few minutes ago. I don't know if it's actually started yet, but that's what I have found out after she said that.
Yeah. Yeah, Trudeau to announce he's stepping down as Liberal leader, sources, according to sources.
Yep.
So, in our last election, we voted in legalization. Let's hope the Conservatives are for some form of legalization and we're not voting legalization out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see.
Well, I shouldn't really say it that way because I can't see it being eliminated. The Conservatives aren't going to just all of a sudden make cannabis illegal again.
Yeah.
But as the story mentioned from StratCan, you can foresee some possible changes.
Yep.
And, some of those changes may be good and some of those changes may be bad. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell. Exactly. All right. Anything else, Cindy, before we say goodbye?
Join Steve and I tomorrow. We have a really cool guest coming on our show.
Oh, do you? Yeah, you can join me and Cindy and Steve.
Over that way.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
3
o'clock?
3 o'clock your time, yes.
That's right. Okay. I look forward to it.
Me too.
All right. Other than that, from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's our P.A.C.E news report for today and our first one for 2025. Thanks to our buds at Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Legacy420.com, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and At-Eze.ca. And in closing, I'd like to say thanks for tuning in, everybody. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at PACERadio.net.